Good morning, young persons. Welcome back to the high school woodshop. As you know, we're making a series of videos where we talk about the machines, the techniques, and the materials that we use here in the shop. Today, in this segment, we're talking about the disc sander. What you have here is a Jet 12-inch industrial machine. Has a 1.5 horsepower motor. Works fine, lasts a long time. It won't rust, bust, or collect dust. Now, with this machine here, it's very simple to use, very easy to use, and yet this is the machine that I've bled on. We'll talk about that more in a second. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about some parts and pieces. Obviously, this is the disc here, and it's important to point out that the disc rotates in this direction. And as it's rotating, you can see that over here on this side of the table, that the disc is going up, and over here on this side of the table, the disc is going down. So this is the disc, and this is the downward traveling side of the disc. Obviously, once again, we have a machine. This has a table, and in this table it has a miter gauge slot, and we can use a miter gauge, much like the table saw or the band saw, to use a miter gauge to move material past the sanding disc with a little bit of precision. On each side of the table there's a knob like this, and this knob is used, if we loosen it on both sides, to change the angle of the table relative to the disc. Like that. And of course we have a power switch that's over here on the side of the machine. Push in the green button to turn it on. Press the red button to turn it off. When we're going to be working on something here in the wood shop, there are 6 steps that I would like you to go through before we begin to work. And number 1 is you're going to prepare yourself to work. Before we prepare the machine, before we check the material, are you ready to operate the machine safely? So if you're tired, sick, or under the influence, you will not be using this machine today, and you will just stay seated at the table. You must wear safety glasses, of course, in the shop here. You must wear safety glasses while using this machine. You must wear safety glasses in the shop anytime that machines are being used and you're not seated at the table. Safety glasses protect your eyes from dust. They protect your eyes from flying pieces of wood or anything else that might come off a saw blade. And they protect your eyes from blunt trauma. Like somebody's carrying a board in the shop and they swing that thing around and it hits you in the face. You might have a nasty bruise, but at least you'll still be able to see. I have students come up using a machine and they're wearing their personal everyday eyeglasses. Personal everyday eyeglasses are not safety glasses. You must wear safety glasses when you're operating this machine or any other machine in this shop. Step number 2 is to prepare the machine. Well, with a disc sander, there's not a whole lot to do to prepare. The sanding disc is put on by me, and basically we run the same grit on the sanding disc year-round. We don't use this machine a lot, so it's just not that big a deal here in this shop. However, it is something to be aware of. This disc can be changed. Another thing that you can check is make sure that this table is generally at a 90-degree angle to the sanding disc. We're going to use a square. I have a small framing square, and we can set that on there and make sure that we do have a nice 90-degree angle there. There's no point in adding a bevel to your material that you didn't intend. Do not use this machine for joinery, squaring stock, or other similar applications. We have a different way to do that here in the shop. When you're using this machine, do not allow your fingers to get closer than 2 inches from the disc sander as it's moving. I did get hurt once using this machine when a student distracted me and my finger, the side of my thumb, went into the disc, and it took off enough skin that it started bleeding after a few seconds. This machine's only really going to work for something that's either straight or an outside edge. You're not going to be able to do something that's curved on an inside edge. Obviously, because it is a flat surface. So on this curve here, I can sand this outside curve. I won't be able to get in here and do this inside curve. Step number 4 is we're going to use the machine correctly. And I'm just going to tell you now, I'll warn you in advance, it happened to me, it can happen to you. If you are not paying attention when you use this machine, you can skin your fingers. It's not necessarily something that's life-threatening, but it's definitely a little bit on the painful side. You'll be wearing a Band-Aid for a few days. You need to pay attention when you're using this machine. Very safe to use, but you do need to pay attention. When you're sanding on this machine, you must hold the material down firmly on the table as you work it against the sanding disc surface. You notice that I do have an orange zone on here, painted. This one here is not the finger clear zone. This orange zone here is to remind you that this is the upward side traveling the disc, and this is the downward side. If you are using the machine incorrectly, as in sanding on the upward side of the disc, as the disc is moving, it's going to want to pick your work up into the air. So the rule is that we only use the downward traveling side of the disc for sanding. This side of the table is not used. This machine in the wood shop is perhaps the most abused machine here because people get impatient. Look, you just apply moderate pressure against the disc as you're sanding. If you get tired of waiting and you're trying to do more and you press too hard, all you're going to do is burn your work. You'll have a scorch mark, and it's going to load up the disc with crud, as you see right here. We only sand certain materials on here. For example, Douglas fir has a lot of sap in it, and that sap is going to come out of the wood as you sand it and just load up the disc and ruin it. Step 5, dealing with the unexpected. With this machine, it's pretty much what you see is what you get. It's very safe to use. However, as I said, I was hurt. I scraped skin off the side of my thumb using this machine when a student distracted me to ask me a question. I wasn't paying attention, my finger went into the disc, and I bled. So, avoid distractions, and don't you be the distraction. You're using the machine, someone taps you on the shoulder. Once again, they are not your friend. Finish what you're doing, wait till the machine is shut off and the disc comes to a standstill before you deal with what's going on. Step number 6 is just use common sense. Step 6, once again, use common sense. If it doesn't seem right, if it doesn't sound right, it doesn't feel right, if you're not confident of what you're doing on this machine, if you're not confident about what's going to happen next, then just stop. Back up. Leave the machine off. Come get me. Back up and watch another student use the machine so that you have confidence when you're using this machine. I don't want you to do something in here where you're nervous and you're afraid something's going to go wrong. We'll talk about it.